Usually when we talk about overhauling a company's culture, there's this underlying expectation of a massive, dramatic demolition.
Right, like bringing in a giant wrecking ball.
Exactly. You tear down the old organizational chart, you smash the legacy processes, and, the expensive consultants point at the rubble, and executive management says, there, we fixed it, we have a new culture.
Yeah, the wrecking ball approach. I mean, it is incredibly common because it's loud, it's highly visible, and it gives the illusion of progress simply because, well, there's a lot of dust in the air.
Right. People confuse activity with actual improvement.
Exactly.
But then you step away from all that corporate theater and into the world of genuine, sustained, continuous improvement. And suddenly that wrecking ball just looks clumsy. It looks destructive.
It really does.
We are looking at a cultural landscape that requires something far more intricate. It's not about demolition. It's about daily, almost microscopic gardening. So welcome to the deep dive.
Glad to be here.
You don't need a wrecking ball. You need a microscope. If you are joining us today, you are the learner, the one who doesn't just want to collect shiny business buzzwords, but actually wants to understand the underlying mechanics of how they function in the real world. Our mission today is decoding how to organically grow a vibrant, continuous improvement culture from the ground up.
And our lens for this exploration is the Lean Made Simple Assessment, which is a really compelling 2024 framework developed by Ryan Tierney. But, we need to set the parameters right away because the word lean often comes with baggage.
Yeah, it definitely does. And I want to clarify our angle right out of the gate here. This is not some boring, dusty checklist about manufacturing tools.
No, not at all.
Or calculating defect rates or, how to organize a tool bench with shadow boards. We are evaluating human behavior. We are talking about the architecture of empowerment.
That is the perfect way to frame it. I mean, the underlying mechanism of the source material we are analyzing today isn't a simple pass-fail audit. It's a self-assessment scale, a philosophical lens, really.
Right.
It moves from a 1, which means, nope, not started yet, all the way up to a 5, which represents looking good. This happens every single day.
Okay, a 1 to 5 scale.
Yeah. The intermediate numbers measure if you are just getting going or making constant progress. And as we navigate through the logic of this framework, I want you to mentally score your own environment.
Yeah, whether that's a corporate workplace, a small business you run, or even just your own personal projects. Think about where you actually sit on that 1 to 5 scale.
Exactly.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because a profound culture shift cannot just be wished into existence by a motivational poster in the break room.
No, definitely not.
It needs an origin point, right? It needs a spark.
Yeah.
And the source material is incredibly firm about where this philosophy must originate. Leadership.
Yeah, it leaves zero room for ambiguity on this front. The framework argues that a lean transformation absolutely must happen from the top down. Ryan Tierney actually says a lean transformation happens from the top down. I'll repeat that because it's important.
Wow, so he really doubles down on it.
He really does.
Yeah.
The leaders in the organization have to actively lead and support the change, or it will inevitably suffocate. And when you are assessing that leadership, you aren't looking at their speeches. You're looking at 3 specific behavioral dimensions.
Okay, what are they?
Enthusiasm, appreciation, and priority.
Let's break those down because they sound a bit soft on the surface. Enthusiasm makes sense. I mean, you want a leader who actually believes in what they are selling.
Right.
But let's talk about appreciation. The text emphasizes showing appreciation for every single improvement the team creates, no matter how tiny. Why is that micro-level appreciation so critical to the structural integrity of the culture?
Well, because culture shifts are incredibly fragile in their early stages. Imagine an employee takes 20 minutes to improve how a shared stapler and a hole punch are stored on a desk.
Okay.
Seems trivial, right? But if a manager walks by and rolls their eyes or says, don't you have real work to do? The psychological safety is shattered.
Oh, wow. Yeah, the culture just dies right there in that moment.
Exactly. That employee will never risk their time or ego to improve anything ever again. That is why priority is the third dimension. Does the leader give time and attention to keeping this journey on track, regardless of the daily fires they have to put out?
Because if improvement is only a priority when things are quiet, it isn't a priority at all.
Precisely.
That makes total sense. And this naturally necessitates a core group to drive that priority. The framework suggests forming a specific leadership group, the Lean Leaders Group, right, for step 3.
Yes, and there's a fantastic quote referenced here from Gene Mack. He says, You can't lead anyone else further than you've gone yourself.
I love that.
Yeah, so this core team has to focus on actual learning, doing the research, leading by helping with the physical improvements, and even doing outreach by visiting other companies to see different approaches in action.
And that concept of leading by example is the entire foundation for step 4, right? Creating a physical example area.
It is. Tierney draws a really sharp, fascinating contrast here between pushing and pulling.
Pushing and pulling, okay.
Yeah, push is a directive. It's management standing on a podiums, telling everyone to go make an improvement. Pull is entirely different. Pull is showing everyone a better way and empowering them to take action by their own volition.
So you create a physical model that shows what good looks like in practice.
Exactly.
It's like buying a gym membership for your team. It means absolutely nothing if the boss isn't sweating on the treadmill too.
That's a great way to put it.
But I have to push back a little here on the mechanics of this. If leadership is entirely top-down and the executives are the ones creating this pristine example area, doesn't that risk feeling a bit like a PR stunt?
How do you mean?
You know, the boss builds a shiny showroom bubble that looks great for investors, but it doesn't reflect the messy, chaotic reality of what the floor workers deal with every day.
Yeah, that is a very common trap, and it's a completely valid skepticism. It's exactly why the framework includes 2 very specific dimensions that an example area must meet to be considered successful: clarity and simplicity. The example area doesn't exist to be a museum exhibit behind velvet ropes. Its primary purpose, under the clarity dimension, is to directly address and dismantle the fears and misconceptions people have about this new culture.
Oh, I see. So it's an educational tool, not a display case.
Precisely. And under simplicity, it exists to prove a hypothesis that this system makes everyone's job easier. If the example area is visually stunning, but the actual work process inside it is more complicated or frustrating, it fails the assessment.
Right, because it has to actually work.
It has to demonstrate tangible, stress-reducing benefits for the people actually doing the labor.
Okay, so it has to be a proof of concept that survives contact with reality. But setting up a successful example area is just day 1. What happens on day 50?
Right.
How do you prevent this momentum from becoming just another management fad that slowly fades into the background noise of emails and deadlines?
Well, that is the eternal challenge, isn't it? Sustaining the momentum requires re-engineering the daily habits. And the heartbeat of that sustainment is step 2, the daily stand-up meeting.
The daily stand-up.
Yeah, but the source material is very careful to define what this meeting actually is. It writes that lean is fundamentally a tool for growing and developing people. So this stand-up isn't just a status update where you list what you did yesterday and what you're doing today.
Thank goodness, because nobody needs another status meeting.
Exactly. This is an educational and cultural huddle. It has 3 dimensions. First, learning the host of the meeting presents a single, digestible concept in what they call a one-point lesson.
Okay.
Second, application, they actually show 1 or 2 before and after videos of improvements made by the team. But the third dimension is the invisible glue that holds the entire ecosystem together.
Which is?
Psychological safety.
Because without that, the whole system is just an echo chamber of what the boss wants to hear. If there is no safety, nobody speaks up about the real problems.
Exactly. Without psychological safety, vulnerability is impossible. Everyone must feel they can talk openly and honestly about the bottlenecks and failures they're experiencing and truly trust that they will get actual solution-based ideas from the team.
Yeah, if an employee fears they will be reprimanded or viewed as incompetent for admitting a process is broken, the stand-up becomes theater.
And you need that authentic safety to unlock step 5, which is the next major cognitive shift, teaching your people to actively see waste.
Yes, developing an eye for waste. The framework argues that the philosophy only truly clicks when waste starts jumping out at people in their environment.
And the framework defines waste through a very specific lens, the voice of the customer. Meaning waste is any activity, any delay, any excess material that the customer would not be happy to pay for if they saw it on an itemized bill.
That's a brutal but effective metric.
It is. But the real paradigm shift, the core of this entire culture, is the mindset of the process engineer. In a truly mature, continuous improvement organization, everyone, regardless of their title, has the exact same fundamental role.
Which is to improve the process of how they work.
Yes. The text explicitly says the goal isn't to do the job, it's to improve the job.
Here's where it gets really interesting. I want you to think about how radical that is for the average worker.
Yeah.
Imagine your own job right now. Imagine if your primary directive from your boss wasn't completing your daily quota of tasks, but actively analyzing and improving how those tasks are done. It completely flips the script.
It really does.
It takes you from being a replaceable cog in a machine to being the designer of the machine itself.
What's fascinating here is the causality between the daily meeting we just discussed and this new mindset.
Right.
You cannot simply ask an employee to act like a process engineer, to question the status quo, to admit massive inefficiencies, to run experiments that might fail if you haven't first established an ironclad foundation of psychological safety.
The safety is the mandatory prerequisite.
Yes, it's required for the vulnerability needed to stand up and say, the way I've been doing this task for the last 5 years is actually incredibly wasteful.
It's an uncomfortable leap. You're essentially asking an employee to risk their own professional pride by admitting their current workflow is garbage.
Exactly.
But let's say you achieve that. Let's say the team feels safe and they are suddenly seeing waste everywhere. Seeing it as useless if they are punished for taking the time to fix it. How do we turn that observation into tangible momentum?
This is where the structural mechanics come into play, specifically step 6. You have to introduce dedicated improvement time.
Dedicated time.
Yeah. Tierney notes that giving people the actual freedom and time to be creative generates a level of engagement they likely haven't experienced in their careers before. The dimensions to assess this are easy, small, and now.
Okay, easy, small, and now.
You explicitly give people time to make their jobs easier, ideally right after that daily stand-up meeting when the energy is high. You strive for small, low-cost improvements rather than massive capital projects. And crucially, you try to implement a stop-and-fix mindset.
Meaning you correct a frustrating thing right when it happens instead of logging it in some distant ticketing system and hoping to deal with it later.
Exactly.
But stopping to fix something only works if fixing it isn't a complete nightmare. I think of this like friction in smartphone app design.
Oh, that's a good analogy.
Yeah. If a new app takes 3 clicks to do something instead of 1, you just won't use it. The friction kills the habit. And that applies perfectly to the physical workspace.
It really does.
If finding a wrench to fix a wobbly table takes 20 minutes of searching through a disorganized supply closet, the stop-and-fix mindset dies instantly. You just fold up a napkin, shove it under the table leg, and walk away.
That is a perfect analogy, and it perfectly illustrates step 8, which is making improving easy. The framework states the overarching goal is to make these behaviors habitual by drastically lowering the bar to entry.
Yay.
The dimensions here are help, flexibility, and habit. You have to make getting assistance, tools, and materials incredibly quick and frictionless. You have to make the physical workplace flexible so it is easy to reconfigure.
Because if the tools are right there, visible and accessible, improvement becomes an unconscious habit. You've removed the environmental obstacles to change.
Right. And once someone does easily fix that wobbly table or streamlines a digital workflow, they can't just keep that victory to themselves. The culture requires that information to flow, which brings us to step 7.
Lateral sharing.
Exactly. In lean terminology, this is often called yokoten, which translates to horizontal best practice sharing. An improvement is not considered complete until it is shared with the rest of the organization.
So this is where those before and after videos from the daily stand-up come back into play.
Yes. Tierney describes these short videos as peer-to-peer learning at its best. You share the improvement, you recognize the person responsible to generate positive excitement, and then the rest of the team tries to learn and adapt that core idea to their own distinct areas.
It turns individual ingenuity into a viral idea within the company.
It does.
Okay, so let's look at the architecture we've built so far. The team is making small daily improvements. They have the dedicated time. They have the psychological safety to admit flaws. And they are sharing these viral before and after videos with each other.
Yep, that's the momentum.
But how do we ensure these individual wins become permanent structural pillars of the organization? Because people leave or they get busy or management changes. We have to tame the tangible environment, the physical inventory, and the written rules.
That is the transition from individual action to systemic permanence. And it starts with step 9, solving your inventory problem.
Inventory, okay.
Yeah. Inventory management is described in the source material as an onerous, energy, and time-consuming activity. If you are constantly running out of supplies or hoarding too much, it drains morale. Solving it is critical because it frees up immense amounts of time and cognitive capacity for more important creative activities.
Now, I want to dig into this because the framework has some surprisingly specific, almost quirky advice here.
Oh, the kitchen advice.
Yes. It says to involve everyone in inventory management, but it explicitly suggests starting small by using a Kanban system in a communal area like the company kitchen or the bathroom.
Right.
For those who don't know, a Kanban system is essentially a visual cue, like a colored card or an empty bin that signals exactly when you need to reorder something so you never run out, but you also never overstock. But here's my question.
Okay, shoot.
If you are running a massive business or a complex factory, shouldn't you tackle the factory floor or the main supply closet first? Why on earth are we starting in the kitchen?
It sounds counterintuitive, I know, but if we connect this to the bigger picture of human psychology, it's brilliant. Think about it. Everyone from the CEO down to the newest intern interacts with those communal spaces.
Yeah.
Everyone needs coffee supplies. Everyone needs paper towels. By starting in a highly visible, low-stakes environment like a kitchen, you involve the entire company in triggering the need to reorder. It democratizes the process.
Ah, I see. It's a training ground.
Exactly. And the crucial dimension here is that it must be manual at first. You organize it physically, with actual cards or visual cues, to fully understand the flow of the wastes that exist.
Right.
The kitchen becomes the perfect, non-threatening testing ground for everyone to get used to the rhythm of a Kanban system before you scale it up to manage mission-critical factory inventory. If you mess up the coffee order, well, it's a mild annoyance. If you mess up the heavy machinery parts on day one, the business halts.
You practice on the coffee pod so you don't bankrupt the company on the factory floor.
Precisely.
That makes so much sense. It builds the muscle memory. And that leads directly to step 10, which is documenting these newly optimized systems, creating standard operating procedures or SOPs.
Right. Tierney points out a fundamental truth. If you want to serve your customer with consistent excellence, the underlying processes must be excellent, which strictly requires excellent SOPs.
But we need to redefine what an SOP is here, don't we?
We do.
Oh.
These aren't dusty 3-ring binders sitting on a manager's shelf that nobody reads.
The ones that are only opened when an auditor shows up.
Exactly. The dimensions for assessment here are strict to prevent that. First, they must be visible. The SOP must be physically or digitally accessible exactly where the work is actually being done.
Okay, visible. What's the second?
Second, user input. The person doing the work knows the realities of it better than anyone in the executive suite, so they must have direct input in creating the
This
document.
makes sense.
And third, they must be visiting, in use,
Yeah.
meaning they are diagnostic tools. If a process fails and a defect occurs, the very first thing you do is check if the SOP was followed.
Right.
If the worker followed the SOP perfectly and the result was still bad, it means the SOP itself is flawed, and it gets updated immediately. It is a living, breathing document.
So what does this all mean? When the physical environment is optimized, the inventory flows naturally, and the procedures are written and maintained by the people actually doing the labor. The psychology of the workforce fundamentally shifts.
It really does.
It transitions from, I just work here, to, I own this. Which brings us to the ultimate evolution of this journey.
Step 11. Implement total ownership. This goes so much deeper than just asking people to take responsibility for their tasks. The example Ryan Tierney provides in the text perfectly captures the depth of this concept.
The forklift example, right?
Yeah. He says, if I have total ownership of a forklift, I treat it exactly like I own it. If it gets a scratch on the paint, I don't wait for maintenance. I'll touch it up with paint myself. If it gets dirty, I'll clean it. I care for it as if my own money bought it.
It's the rental car analogy.
Exactly.
Nobody washes a rental car. You just drive it. Maybe you hit a few potholes because you don't care about the suspension, and you hand the keys back at the airport. This framework is about turning every single employee from a renter into an owner.
That is exactly it. And the structural rules to assess this level of ownership are vital. First, respect. By assigning clear ownership to every single area and piece of equipment, you embed a culture of deep respect for the facility, for the customer receiving the product, and for each other.
Okay, what's next?
Second, there must be a single owner. The text is incredibly explicit on this point. Dual ownership is no ownership.
Dual ownership is no ownership.
Yeah. If two people are responsible for the forklift, neither will paint the scratch because they will assume the other person will do it. Every area needs one definitive owner.
Right. If everyone is in charge, no one is in charge.
Exactly. And the third rule of total ownership is most important. No blame.
No blame.
No blame. When something goes wrong you aggressively attack the process, not the person. If a mistake happens, the assumption is that the system failed the employee, not that the employee failed the system.
Attack the process, not the person. That is a magnificent operational philosophy. And once an organization has reached that high level of ownership and maturity, they don't just pull up the drawbridge and hide their secrets.
No, the final stage, step 12, is to connect with other lean enthusiasts. This journey is incredibly difficult, and it isn't meant to be done in isolation.
So you reach outward.
Yes. The dimensions here suggest you reach out to the global network of continuous improvement practitioners because they are generally generous with their knowledge.
Nice.
You need to become tour ready, meaning you confidently open your doors to let outsiders experience your efforts, and you use that slightly nerve-wracking energy to power your next stage of refinement.
Oh, like hosting guests makes you clean your house.
Exactly. And finally, you must do it your way. You take all this external information and you learn, think, apply, reflect, and inspire. Every organization is unique with its own distinct DNA, and you have to find your own bespoke way to apply these universal principles.
What an incredible architectural blueprint. We started with the absolute necessity of top-down leadership, the spark that proves the boss is willing to walk the walk.
Right.
We moved into the mechanics of daily rituals, replacing the traditional corporate fear with deep psychological safety. We looked at how that safety transforms everyday workers into process engineers who are empowered to see and eliminate waste.
It's quite the journey.
We talked about reducing physical friction so improvements can happen now, sharing those individual wins like viral videos, practicing inventory control in the break room coffee before touching the factory floor, and finally, reaching that ultimate end state of total ownership, moving an entire culture from renters to owners.
It really is a comprehensive ecosystem. It proves that continuous improvement isn't a destination, it's a completely different way of operating.
So learner, as you go back to your desk or your workshop, or even as you look at your own personal goals today, I want you to reflect on that 1 to 5 scale we established at the start.
Yeah, think about it.
Look at the reality of your environment. Where do your current projects or teams actually sit? Are you at a 2, where you are just getting going and facing resistance? Or are you approaching a 5, where this kind of frictionless improvement happens every day?
And if I may, this raises a really important, slightly provocative question to leave you with, drawing on that no-blame dimension of total ownership we just discussed.
Oh, let's hear it.
We know that in a healthy business, dual ownership is no ownership, and you must always attack the process, not the person, when things go wrong. I want you to think about how you handle your own personal failures.
Oh, wow.
When you fall short of a personal goal or break a habit, do you waste your energy blaming yourself, attacking your own character and willpower? Or do you take total ownership, step back without judgment, and simply look at how you can fix your personal process?
Wow. Treat yourself like the process, not the problem. That is a brilliant way to reframe it. Thank you so much for joining us on this custom deep dive. Keep your eyes open for that waste. Keep finding ways to remove the friction and make the work easier. And remember, leave the wrecking ball at home. Start planting the seeds. We'll see you next time.